أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فهو المهتدى ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أيتها الأخوات أيها الإخوة أحييكم بتحية الإسلام تحية من عند الله مباركة طيبة السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. It's really great to be able to listen to Sheikh Muhammad Jibril, because not only we know about his voice, but over the last 2 years he has been in fact a voice in Egypt, asking for change, being able to promote a deeper understanding of the way people should resist the dictator over the last few years, and especially one khutbah and one presence in one of the Jum'ahs that shaken the country and helped the whole process towards this change. So alhamdulillah, you remember for some of you last year, I was talking about the Arab awakening, and this was before the book was published. Now alhamdulillah, it's published in English, it will be there, and I hope to see some of you inshallah the booth coming, because I have to talk about two things. The first is the Arab awakening, but also something that we are trying to do and where we need the presence of Muslims and not only the scholars, because we are working at different level, but also in our commitment towards Islamic ethics and applied Islamic ethics. And among the fields, 11 fields on which we are working, gender, education and others, there is one which has to do with what we are talking about now, which is Islamic ethics and politics, good governance. Last year, I was talking about what we knew before the Arab awakening and what were the elements that we had to keep in mind to understand. Unfortunately, in one way, I took a position at that time from the very beginning, writing on the issue what we knew before, what was happening, which was a position, an intellectual attitude, an intellectual positioning that I called cautiously optimistic. From the very beginning, there is something which is very important when you heard right now the verse that we keep on repeating and which is essential for us. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah is not going to change anything if we don't change what is in ourselves. Meaning, not only our hearts, because this is essential, our intentions should be to liberate the countries for the sake of our love to God and our respect to principles, freedom, dignity, transparency, no corruption. All these principles are principles that we are cherishing, and we have to be clear on this. So Allah is telling us, you need to check your intention. Are you trying to remove power to take over power, which was the understanding of the people before? أَجِئْتَنَا لِتَلْفِتَنَا عَمَّا وَجَدْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَاءَنَا وَتَكُونَ لَكُمَا الْكِبْرِيَاءُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. This is what was said to Musa wa Harun alayhim as-salam, saying, did you come just to remove what we heard from our fathers and mothers and to get power? This is also something which is important, is to check our intentions. So to remove a dictator in order to get justice and dignity, it's essential. It's not to have and to try to be obsessed with power and money and oppressing people again. This is one dimension of what we have in the verse. But there is also something which is important, that Allah is not going to change our situation in the Muslim majority countries if we don't change as well our state of mind, our mindset. And there is something that we have to start with, which is to stop being too much emotional and to start thinking politics when we talk politics. Politics is not easy, politics is complex, and there are many dimensions. The first thing that we have to say, and I keep on repeating this, is that the Arab awakening, alhamdulillah, is an intellectual awakening that now the Arabs in MENA, Middle East and North African countries, showed us, proved to the world that they are able to say no, to take to the streets, and to say to the dictators, we are not going to accept this. So this is the dimension where the people are courageous and showing that they can resist and they are ready to sacrifice. And up to now, even in Syria, and we have to think about our brothers and sisters in Syria that are resisting, but not only, everywhere. All these people who in Tunisia, in Egypt, in Libya, in Yemen, even in Jordan, in all these countries, in Bahrain and in Syria, they are saying no. And this is what we have to celebrate first, is this massive demonstrations of people being able to say no. And you know, very often, we in the West, we were happy with our status because we live in democracy, and we are celebrating now something which is coming from the Middle East, which is not only the Islamic knowledge, is this power of people saying no. And if I may, brothers and sisters living in Canada or in the United States of America, in the West, you may take a lesson out of that. You may just listen to the voices, and you, living in the West, be courageous enough to say no when there are injustices. Because what I see today is many Western Muslims, they are happy for the people to say no, but they are not courageous in this country or in the States or in Europe to say no to injustices done to the Muslims, and not only to the Muslims. At the time where now I'm talking to you, we have in the jails here in Canada or in the United States of America or in Europe, people who are innocent and they are jailed only because they are suspected of being potentially connected to a so-called terrorist organization. So let us be sincere. If there is something which is a lesson that is coming from the Middle East, is be ready, say no, and stand up. This is good and important. Now, we also have to be very cautious with the way we are analyzing things. It's not only, you know, we are talking about Arab Spring. I never used spring. I never used revolution because I still now hope that the true challenges that the Arabs and the Muslim majority countries are facing are going to be tackled out of this process. And the first challenge that we should understand is to stop talking in nationalistic way. Tunisians dealing with Tunisia, Egyptians with Egypt, Syrians with Syria. It's as if it's all these countries and everyone is only concerned with her or his country. Now it's a regional dimension, and there will be no future in the Middle East if we don't think regionally. While you think about the country, foreign policies are looking at the region. And the region is quite important because we have challenges. The first, at the national level, that's true that we need to think about what is going to be the status and the qualification of the state. Are we going to talk about democratic states? And still today, there is no country out of this process that can, today we can say it's settled. It's not settled in Egypt, it's not settled in Tunisia, it's not settled in Libya, it's not settled. So from where we are, we need to ask this question and to be on the side of the people who are ready for democratization, human rights, and freedom and dignity for all. The second is also not to forget that there is a critical question, and if you listen to what is happening in Egypt, if you follow what is happening in Egypt, and I said it from before even Mubarak left the country, the armies everywhere are playing a very important role. There will be no democratic process as long as you have the army from behind the scene. So we have to get this. And when I'm talking about the army, it's not only an independent authority. It has to do with economy and it has to do with foreign policies. The link between the old dictatorship and the West and even the US administration was known as going through the channel of the army. It was known. So we need to get this. We also need to deal with corruption and transparency, and then also to deal with the main challenges when we talk about education, when we talk about social justice, when we talk about empowerment for women, when we talk about economic stability and South-South relationship. So far, the positive dimension is people are awakening, people are demonstrating, and that's good. Now, this very simplistic perception that we have, even sometimes in the West, that it's the secularist versus the Islamist, and we don't come to the true questions, is something which is very dangerous. So if we deal with what is happening in the Middle East, we should stop being simplistic and superficial. Add to this, that while you are talking about all these countries, there is one country, one people, with population that we are forgetting. And it might be that in the whole process, by talking about everything, we start forgetting the Palestinian rights. And that's very dangerous. Because, remember. It's dangerous. Because we are talking about liberating the people, valuing the blood of the Arabs in Egypt and all this. What about the Palestinians? Should they be happy to have a sit to observe what is happening in the United Nations and people celebrating? And if you don't get this equation in your understanding of the region, don't talk about the Arab Spring. Just try to get a better understanding, because what is coming might be very dangerous for the Palestinians, but for the people as well. So no superficial, simplistic celebration of a spring while we are not getting all the elements and the complexity, because you are still now having foreign countries that are playing a very, very cynical role in the region. This is only as an introduction what I was trying to say in the book that I am repeating now 1 year after I came, and asking you, unfortunately, what I said appeared to be confirmed today. But more importantly, what is the message is, okay, we speak about the Arabs, we speak about the Muslims in Muslim majority countries, what about us? And if I may tell you something as a message to the Canadian and the American Muslims today, is don't put yourself in a situation where you are observing the situation, observing the world, and not being committed. If you are serious about hoping a change and listening to the verse with this beautiful voice that were just now recited to us by Sheikh Muhammad Jibril, it's also from where you are to be consistent. In your country, you have an intellectual role to play. First, by presenting a better understanding of what is happening in the Middle East, by getting the knowledge of the Middle East yourself. Don't let the people think that it's simple. You should be equipped intellectually, and if you can study the situation, study and speak about it. Speak about the diversity there. Speak about the challenges. Speak about social justice. Let the people understand in Canada that there will be no empowerment for women as long as there is no access to education and access to the job market. Don't let them think that all these countries are becoming backward because we have more headscarves in the streets. Don't let them think that. But you have a role to play, and women in the West have a role to play by explaining and being involved. Don't disappear from the intellectual discussion and the political discussion in this country. Canada is for democracy, and Canada should be for democracy here and there. And they should help, they should be connected, they should have communication with all the democratic forces. And the democratic forces, it's easy. It's not the people you like to be elected, it's the people who are elected, like it or not. You have to deal with the people, you have to deal with the people. Please, be courageous Canadian citizen or American citizen, and be consistent. Let the people understand in this country that your distinctiveness, your ethical presence is to be able to say in Canada, in America, that you will never stop talking. You will never keep quiet when human beings are mistreated in our jails here because they are suspected. And you are not going to keep quiet when trends and people are working for more democracy and they are not heard and not supported because we don't like them. At the end, the voice of the people should be heard everywhere. And this is your responsibility by being informed and equipped. So there will be no change as long as we don't change ourselves. And the best thing to do to change ourselves, more education, more information, and more courage to speak out and to explain to your fellow citizens. This is the way. You should not go to Palestine to struggle. You should stay here and struggle here in the name of the oppressed people wherever you are. So the courage is not to travel. The courage is to stay here and stand up. But to stay here and to sit down, there might be a problem. Assalamu alaikum wallahu a'lam wa ahkam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.